Okay. YouTube seems to be finally up now too. So basically, I guess I can start now. So in this session, the goal is to write a small concatenator from my change tracking text editor. I have like the editor produces a file that contains change instructions for how to construct every stage of text development. That's like versioning and automatic like revision tracking. And if there are multiple sessions when working on a text, it is very likely that the author ends up with multiple of these change instruction files. And I'm currently working on a version of my change tracking text editor that offers some GUI dialogues as a means to be interacted with by the user, like the earlier versions as provided on the website, like the latest version from December last year. That one requires the user to basically copy files around manually, and currently I'm working on a version that does this with GUI dialogues. So maybe I should show the current status of my work. Wait a second, I have to check the chat. Okay. I hope I didn't miss a message. So basically, like, I wonder if I can run it right now, but like, let's try. I made a new workflow in here, and that will be a workflow to basically start the text editor. Maybe I should get rid of some of the stuff that's in here. Let's see if it runs with Java without recompiling the whole thing. Change tracking text editor. Then I have the obligatory job file and a result information file. And what's happening now, in contrast to the standalone program, is that I'm offered like a file selection dialog. For some reason it looks a little bit pixelated here on my screen. Maybe it has to do with the resolution or whatnot. Okay, but like basically at first I have to select an output directory for the files I will generate in this session. Let's just call it output on the desktop. The next stage will be to select to basically decide what I want to do now, if I want to create a new text or if I want to work with an existing one. And the nice thing about the option edit existing text is that if it is like a plain text file, it will be added, imported into the version history as a single add command. But if it is an already existing revision text history file, then the great feature here is that the whatever I will write in the editor in this session, these changes will then be, like, that's the plan, should be concatenated to the already existing text history, and that's like pretty, and that's what I need the concatenator for. So basically maybe I should just get me one of these example files. In here on my personal website I have a few of them in various stages of development. Let's see, like the personal hypertext report 9, that's the announcement of my like work towards for the Doug at 50th anniversary of Douglas Engelbart's great demo. So basically I just saved this to the desktop here. In case you haven't seen it already, just have a quick look into the file, what I'm like talking about. So basically this is a change instruction file from the very start, from position 0, and the additions and deletions, how every version of the text can be reconstructed down to the single character. And so like now I'm going to wait, where's my, oh, for some reason I want to edit an already existing text, and like these calls take a little bit time. I think that's because Java is starting a new process every time, and it's expensive, of course. So on the desktop I now have my existing file here, and I should get, no, that's basically the editor that tracks the changes I do to it. For example, I decide that this portion here shouldn't be justified, like when displaying, and maybe I add something more. So now I have a deletion and an addition here. And if I close that, I guess that's basically it for the execution, for the like for how much I developed up to this point right now. Because now like in the output directory I have like an output session XML file, and the contents of that file need to be concatenated to the already existing text history on which my session was based on. So basically that's the new portion here, and there's also the original history. So basically like the point is to concatenate this piece here to the end of the history that was already existing. And like there are many questions that are related to this. For example, I have a generic XML concatenator already, and that would do the job quite fine. But I guess I'm introducing a new capability for it, a new tool for it, for the reason that I can add some code into it that's specific to this version history concatenation. For example, checking the positions that they are not out of range. And in the future, the idea could be that like I could like work with the hashes of the original history here and check that for the new additions, for something like merging, or in a more blockchainy way for like these text histories, in order to make sure that like a new session instructions like these ones, that they are not concatenated to a file that's not the origin up to this particular state, text state and text version, because otherwise the instructions would, like the new instructions, would basically corrupt what already was in the text, and that's something I probably want to avoid and deny that this can happen, right? Because like for all of these merging operations, concatenation operations in like branching text variants, it is important that the merging happens at the right point in time to avoid like this kind of text corruption. Okay, so that's basically the situation up to this point. And I guess I'm just going ahead and use this package I already have here, like this directory. In here, I guess I need to, I'm probably just going for the XML concatenator and introduce it right here. And I think the latest idea I had was like calling it a change history concatenator in contrast to change instructions concatenator. The change instructions concatenator concatenates subsequent instructions that are of the same type and at the same position into a single instruction in order to save like instructions, to not fragment the instructions if they are subsequent anyway. So basically let's rename this here. This is the change history concatenator. And so this is basically going to be a rather boring copy and paste session. But yeah, like as said, it's also a chance to discuss what can be done about the merging of text development and revision files. Oh, hi, Leaf is here again. Yeah, you just missed the introduction of what I want to do, what I'm going to do today. But basically, I guess you know about like in the stream description, there's always link and details, like details. Under details, there's a link that leads to the description what I'm going to do today. So you can decide if that's remotely interesting or not at all. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I mean, like, if you really care, I can repeat the whole introduction again. I don't mind. Yeah. It will just like totally pollute the recording. But really quick, like I have this text editor that tracks the changes of what I'm typing, and now I'm going to introduce a new tool that concatenates the output of a new editor session with a text history that already exists. And I like have already a generic XML concatenator that like just adds to two XML files one after another. But now I want to introduce in this one, in this more specialized tool, I want to add some additional features so that because you know, like it's a little bit dangerous if I have like text instructions and like the first 50 instructions develop a text to like a final version or state, and then I add some new instructions at the end of it, and I want to make sure that these new instructions are not out of bounds and are not corrupting the last, like, so that like basically that the new text continues from where the old version file or old history stream basically ended. And there are multiple ways to do this. For example, I could count the instructions. I could also like do some hashing and blockchainy things, you know, like looking at these versions as like blockchain blocks, which is, you know, probably not the most exciting thing in the world because it doesn't have to do with money and cryptocurrencies, but like that's something worth considering. And basically that all of that leads towards the writing text in multiple sessions or by multiple people and then merging it later, right, into like, I mean, it's like this ever branching amount of branches and forks that can be recombined and branch off again, and a lot of variants of the same text base. That's basically what it is supposed to end up. Like that's like the goal to get there. Yeah. Okay, let's see. So that's the make file here. And like most of this stream will probably be copy and paste, renaming, stuff like that. That's like boring boilerplate. But like I wanted to stream it because it's like a relatively isolated like task to create this tool. So like I don't need to, like, I don't start in the middle of an already existing bunch of work. And also maybe to have the video out, so like what I just described with this branching and merging, that people can like if they're interested in this general kind of topic about like these text history tracking and stuff like that, maybe it's a chance for them to engage in the comments of the video or in the live stream, of course, if they're around at this time. Okay. Maybe I should read the comments on YouTube because they are unfortunately not on Restream. So you only need to fix the offsets of the second file, right? Yeah, that's the, like, I mean, at this point the offsets are all absolute, but if I have a merge conflict because the new changes are made to a later version from the history file I have, then of course I could calculate the relative like offset, or like, I mean, I have to figure this out. I haven't solved it yet, but like the idea is that you would be able to, hopefully would be able to merge things. Like, I want to identify the merge conflicts where changes would conflict, and otherwise calculate the right offset, adjust the offsets so that it magically just fits in at the position it is intended to fit in, if that makes sense. Yeah, but like that's something I need to work on in the future, hopefully, because that would be really neat. That's the whole, that's the end goal, end game. And I don't know if I can figure it out, but I guess like a lot of people have worked on this already, and I guess there are some solutions, and yeah. Maybe there could also be like human decisions in it, of course, to decide where like if you have a single instruction for an addition, like if it's just a paragraph or whatever, maybe you could say I want to deliberately ignore the history and fit these instructions in here or something. I don't know yet. but yeah, this is about preparing for these scenarios and use cases. Like if I have it solved in maybe, who knows, in many more months, then I should probably just make a video describing the final result, and then you can look at that one without like all the technical details and millions of small and big decisions here. Okay. Let's see, usually start with the makefile. Okay, I see. Okay. Yeah, another thing I'm working on in parallel is sort of a tool to generate glossaries. Is this KDE Neon? I don't know. This is just out of the box Kubuntu. I guess it is a Kubuntu, isn't it? Out of the box Kubuntu distribution, I guess. Lubuntu, Kubuntu, Ubuntu. I don't know. I forgot. Like a month ago, I still knew, but at this point, I forgot what it is. Apologies. But wait, like, let's discard that one. Yeah, like the most important thing for me was that like I can that with this distribution the audio is far better than what I had on my old box, because that one was really crappy and distorted. Okay. Okay, so this is basically just a bunch of boring renaming. Like there are interesting options to basically generate most of this code and make it a more node-based engine, but at this point I'm not investing the time to set it up properly, because then I would end up with a better system, but it would still not do more function or feature wise for the text capabilities I want to have available. So basically I'm delaying that for some time in the future to do some more system, like hypertext system environment related stuff and programming models. Yeah. Okay. Has text history files. I guess I'm not describing in more detail what it is supposed to do in the future. It doesn't do much for now, so just leave it with a pretty vague description. I'm also changing these ones if like the tool is hypertext related. I change the address for the project website, so hopefully, like, I mean, it doesn't matter for the output on the console, but in files I usually indicate what tool created it, and then depending on if it is more about like publishing workflows for format conversions. Then I put in publishing systems, and in this case hypertext systems, so people can find the download and the source code for the tools if they don't have the file on their computer themselves. And if they just find the result of one of these workflows in the wild, then they can at least find out how it was produced, so they can adjust it to their own needs if they should ever want to. Okay, let's see. Oh no, that's the, okay. The other thing I'm working on is for a glossary, some ways to, like I have a prototype for a glossary already. Maybe I should, maybe it's a good idea to show that in parallel. Because that also is related to Doug Engelbart's 50th anniversary of the great demo. So that's loading stuff that takes a while. Are you a little bit interested in Leaf? Are you a little bit interested in hypertext things and Douglas Engelbart, Ted Nelson, David Gelernter, and these kind of people? I don't know. That's mostly what the stuff I'm interested in and working on most of the time. Most people have never heard about it, of course not, because that's abandoned for 50 years. Leaf says, no, I don't know these names. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's rather interesting because for example, Douglas Engelbart, he's the inventor of most of our modern computing, and not only that, his main vision behind it was basically recognizing that after the Second World War and the development of the atomic bomb, I guess in the sort of his impression was that with all the engineering and research we are doing, that's at a scale and at a destructiveness that creates us a lot of problems in the world, urgent complex problems, and they are increasing at a far higher pace than our capability and our ability to solve or even engage with these problems, like climate change and proliferation of nuclear weapons, or in nuclear radioactive material in general, also the peak oil problems, and we have a lot of these, and also and he thought about what would be the best way to address those, and his sort of solution or answer to it was that we cannot do it with the conventional procedures in academia and politics, but instead you need to look at these things a little bit more systemically, right? Because all of this is interrelated, like a lot of interrelated effects, and none of these are easy to, today there's a lot of activism that says, oh, if there's a water crisis, we just need to, dig more, how is it called, wells or something, right? And then of course that takes out all of the groundwater, and that has other implications. It's all about this system theory and cybernetic stuff, and he thought about in order to address these problems and even have a chance, it it would be important to have like a meta improvement strategy. So like the idea is that like you do your main work, for example, writing stuff like I do, but at the same time you also need some, if it is a group or like a procedure that improves the way you write, so you get more effective, and that helps to get more effective at getting more effective, basically, or like improving the improvement. And the hope is that that would offer a fast, like that would keep pace with the kind of rate of problems we create, basically. And with this idea in mind, I guess he looked around a little what was available at his time, and being like a radar operator and electrical engineer, I guess he looked at the computer and figured out that it makes a lot of sense to use the computer as a tool for these kind of improvement processes in order to approach big, urgent, complex problems. And so like that's where his like and at that time it's important to take into account that at that time computers were mostly either big analog machines for cracking the enigma for like code breaking, or maybe they were these huge business machines like what IBM sold and stuff like that, and also like for military ballistic missile calculations and stuff like that. That was what computers were used for, and like you had the mathematician basically developing a program, and then like a woman who would enter that into the machine by like changing the cabling, rewiring the actual machine. And later in universities it was like this batch processing of stamping tape, and like leaving that at the room of the computer operator, and the next morning you had your results, just to find out that there was a bug in it, and you have to redo the whole procedure again. And basically an interactive and networked way to work with a computer, that's basically what Engelbart invented. And like also like video conferencing, like word processing, all of these kind of things. He made some also like in system development, operating system stuff, all of that. There's like a long list of his inventions. And yeah, and like now we're 50 years like after that, and like most of it is lost. We don't have it anymore because like the Apples and the Microsofts and the Xeroxes and all of these the commercial productized computer is more about having a sort of unified interface standard, and like people can only work with these. Today everything needs to be in the browser, on the web of course, and that's very, very problematic. That's why my tools are not in the browser. I don't like the artificial restrictions that are in there, which are mostly based on, like the crappy computing environment. Most of the systems of today, yeah. Leaf says the web is sad. Yeah, I mean it's pretty cool in terms of a rendering engine, right? It does a pretty good job for rendering, and it's also pretty good for programming, for developing online applications. For example, a shop or whatever, like a business, these sort of, for having online software where like you get the networking basically out of the box gratis. You don't need to do network programming in terms of opening a socket and connecting to a port and stuff like that. Of course, you can do that in the, on the web as well, but basically in the browser you get all of that out of the box. Or for example, for game programming or stuff like that, I mean, I guess the web is like pretty okay, I guess, right? Because like for that you don't need more than like, it's like your like your gaming console terminal that's already networked, I guess. For these kind of things, it's pretty okay, I guess. But if you want to do some text stuff, then like the web doesn't offer a lot of interesting things, right? Just like, for example, the thing is, I need to develop here because the web doesn't have it. And if I would do it in a web way, then okay, I can slap it onto my own website. But I want to make it work with every text and website and all of the material that's on my computer already, right? So like I cannot, like if it's sandboxed in the browser just for security purposes, if I'm working with text, I'm not doing remote code execution or JavaScript execution or Flash or any of that anyway. So that why even bother, right? And there are a lot of people who escape the sandbox by either having a browser extension that basically just does like local file access, right? Because the browser is sandboxed and cannot do it. You just put your extension in that does the very same thing. So, but it's still, I guess, a security problem, isn't it? And the other option is to have like a local server and use that as a proxy, I guess, for talking to the web. So that's what people do. So basically, I guess, like I loaded in the background this glossary here. That's like interface prototype, and like it's looking for keywords or defined terms of the glossary. So if I click on any of these, I can read description here. And like in this case, all the content here is loaded from the web, and it's also in the browser, of course, from like my website here. But the idea now is to make that into a standalone program that like ordinary people can call with some file selection dialogues, so they can basically pick any XHTML input file that may contain a definition list according to the XHTML semantics for definitions, and can also select like a target file on which this is supposed to be applied, and then you end up with a rendering like this, but not online and not like it's still in the browser, but that's basically a standalone XHTML file on your computer then, and you can put it up on the web or via FTP or whatever, or put with a client. Do you host hypertext systems org? Yeah, I mean, that's my sort of domain for like these hypertext related projects, and there's not much on there. I mean, I like the other website is like there I have, that's a how is it called, vhost, virtual server, I guess, and there I can like run native programs in the background and have like a bridge, like for example PHP or something could do a system call to the system, and it could run my very same Java code in the background and do all these things and basically offer the result files for download. But I'm not doing anything like this with this one. This is just informational. But what I do here is like I host my own video files. That's something that I care about to some extent, because like online video sites are such a crap. So at least I have like my videos self-hosted here, because like I pay a lot for a lot of web space, and I don't really use it. So I figured I should at least put my my videos on there. Yeah, just because I can, sort of. And like going towards self-hosting and paying for my own host space there. So I'm not just using YouTube hosting space or from all these other websites. If all of those go down, or if they kick me out, I have at least my backup here, sort of, right? But like interesting, like, I mean, it could be like, if you look into some of these links, it's sort of rather interesting about like this way of doing things from these web pioneers, right? And what else? Like on downloads, there's like the, not really old, but this is like the version of the text editor there. And these two lead to somewhere else, and then like to do the other sites, and that's already it, you know, like these are the other sites. That's more for publishing, you know, format conversions for ebooks and word processor documents and stuff like that. And groupware, that's sort of like paused at the moment. Like the idea was to develop a whole bunch of, let's say, productivity tools like issue trackers and I don't know, contact lists and all sorts of things as like semantic data. But at the moment there's like, it's a little bit difficult and hard to find anybody who's sort of working on things collaboratively, you know, because I have some of these some code for it already from other projects. Yeah, but I don't even, why bother for repurposing it? That's just more work and no fun. not you. I mean, if there's nobody to use it together with, then I can save me that time, I guess, right? Okay. So like, if you need something around like working with text, that's basically mostly plain text, or also, you know, like semantics. There are plenty of options to start new projects along these lines. If you remember, like also the YouTube comments I did like a month ago, like also with hypermedia, that's like online video, audio, stuff like that. These are the typical topics of interest of mine. Change history concatenator. Oh. Or if you have something cool, or if you have seen something that's like along these lines, feel free to drop me a link. I tend to, like, as time permits, I look into projects like this. There's also some other things coming up soon, eventually, right? Around like web annotation, and stuff like that. But like, I basically want to complete these projects here first, because otherwise I start too many new things and I never get back to complete the old stuff. So that's why like I need to push through these and complete these older things I started already, to get the change tracking text editor to a new stage, so it can stay like this for a while and actually becomes usable for real people. For example, if you are like interested in editors and stuff, I discovered a site that's called, I think, texteditors.org. Yeah, I guess that's it. Like, that's interestingly enough wiki, I guess, implementation of their own. I think it was Perl or something. And they have a pretty comprehensive list of text editors for all sorts of different things. Usually it's about like editors for, I mean, of course, plain text, but also potentially for programming, you know, text editors that do syntax highlighting and stuff like that. And also, like, they have a lot of historical editors, and I would like to learn more about what these offered feature-wise. They also have a family tree. Let's see, where was it? Family classifications, text editor families. And of course, my editor would go into Java-based editors, I guess, or maybe there's another family as well. But I'm not too sure if I could add mine there, right? Because for one, it's always bad to sort of like promote your own stuff. But on the other hand, I don't even know if my sort of editor fits in here, because I mean, at this point, I need to make it into a real editor that allows to edit any random file. But on the other hand, I don't know if like change tracking is something these guys here are concerned about, you know, if they care about that, or if that excludes it already from their text editor selection. So Leaf asks, aren't all text editors just Notepad? Yeah, obviously not. I mean, like you can go like, there are many, like, I mean, you can look at this, like, for most people, yes, it's basically just Notepad. And like, if the main purpose is to capture the keys you type on the keyboard and save it to a file, that's pretty accurate for most people. But like for a small group of people who write a lot, namely mostly programmers, computer programmers, they have like very like specific needs for their editors, you know, like syntax highlighting is just one of them, but like you could imagine tons of features, of specialized features. Like it's like there are a lot of car mechanics probably, right, in a lot of repair shops, but there are like some masters who, you know, they make their own tools which are highly specialized, that make them more productive or allow them to do things that other people have difficulty with, and for that reason they develop their own highly specialized tools that are probably just useful for 5 other people in the world, but it makes them so much, or maybe they, you know, they can tune it to their own needs. And like, I mean, even the group of programmers is a pretty large group, of course, but you know, like an author of a book has totally different needs for an editor or a writing tool than a programmer, and a programmer has totally different needs for like a writing tool or notepad thing, like somebody who writes technical documentation, and those who write technical documentation have entirely different needs than somebody who's like somebody who mostly writes email. And for that reason you could have highly specialized editors, I guess. But basically, of course you are right, they all share the same notepad-ish basic functionality, right? It's like a stupid idea to try to write a plain text file in, let's say, like OpenOffice, LibreOffice, because that's for something different, right? I mean, of course you can, but yeah, or like in Dreamweaver or whatever you have, right? I mean, that's sort of like overkill, and like there are all these, you know. How would they be specialized? Who would be specialized? Like the editors? I mean, I guess you know about like integrated development environments, right? Like Eclipse and stuff like that. Text editors. Yeah, I mean, like I'm using Kwrite here, and that's not because of any preference of mine, but just because that's sort of like the standard editor here. And yeah. So see, like IDEs are mostly like the core component is still probably the text editor, but it has like the autocomplete and like all of these, you know, like project management or like code management around it. And it has, yeah, so Leaf has used Eclipse and Visual Studio, right? So that's like total, that's like text editor gone crazy, right? With a lot of additional stuff put in there. But if we are not talking about EDAs, but just like text editor, like, I mean, you have like even this one has syntax highlighting, of course, right? You could have some that allow like line numbers, and you like tabs versus spaces, and you have like, does the editor have an autosave feature? Does it have automatic indentation? You know, if I press enter after like a see, I don't have like an automatic indentation here, but the editor could allow for automatic indentation based on these on some special characters depending on the programming language. Even if it's not about programming, you know, like there are all these options, like how does it support different encodings, line breaks? Do you like, yeah, like most, yeah. Leaf says all code editors seem to have the same few features. Yeah, I mean, of course, like most of them are pretty similar. That's why I don't care if I use kwrite or, you know, what else do I have here? Not to look into Vim. Featherpad, right? Okay, so this looks more like, this looks more lightweight, you know, for writing a small notice or something. Yeah, but like of course they share most of the same features, but sometimes you need the one feature. For example, it's fine if it can, if you can decide for new line how the new line is stored, or character encoding. But some editors, sometimes you need to convert it, and converting it is like a different problem than just deciding the encoding for a new file. And then you have to find an editor that supports it. And like there are sort of like this similar small things. For example, like autosave, or, you know, all sorts of small little things. But for somebody who is highly specialized, of course, it starts to matter more if they frequently rely on some of these features, right? So I guess that's what it is about. It's not important for most things. Most of the time you cannot even select what editor you want to install on a machine if it's not your machine, right? It's just this stupid notepad on, you know, like, but for like the Windows notepad, I'm so angry about it, because for most of the time it wasn't even able to handle the line breaks. And most of my files are written on, you know, with the Unix, Linux line break ln. Like Windows expects the carriage return line feed, right? And so everything was on one line when looking at it in the Windows notepad, and that was the case until 2018, and then they finally changed it right after 3 decades or so, and that's like just not usable for any practical work, I guess. Yeah. What else? I mean, it has some serious, you know, sometimes I need to perform, or for example, like an integrated hex viewer, right? It makes a lot of sense to be able to look at hex of the characters you have loaded. And if your editor doesn't have that, then you need a second program, separate program, like add byte order mark. So it's like about all of the... Yeah, they fixed it. I think in 2018 they have fixed it, but only very recently. Right? I wonder what took them so long. It's just either they are lazy, or they didn't, they insisted on their editor being, or like their format being the only one in the world, right? And the Mac has only the carriage return, So like it always looks like crap if you're working with different machines, like different operating systems, and pass files from one to another. And most of the time it's even from an online source and you downloaded a file from somewhere. And then of course it always looks like crap, and if you then start to write in it, you are going to mess it up entirely. So basically the standard notepad is not usable if you're not only working on Windows text files, right? So that's why you sometimes need these features. And for most ordinary people, if you're just keeping your own notes, you will never encounter any of these issues, I guess, right? Yeah. that's like complaining on a high level, I guess, right? But if you are like a programmer, then you, of course, you can always insist on a decent solution, because otherwise you can just go ahead and build your own editor that fixes all of these problems. And I guess that's the reason why there are so many, because a lot of people, they get upset because one little feature is missing, and because of that they start their very own editor that has this one feature but lacks all the other ones, just as I do. You know, do you realize my editor at the moment can't do copy and paste, and it can't move, right? You can only write and delete. That's basically it. Yeah. And it's not usable as a code editor because it doesn't have any syntax highlighting, or right? And also, like for example, at work, our editor, you can in like, for example, like these programming editors, which aren't a full-blown IDE, in there you can, like, the editor has a feature that can analyze our entire code base, and then you have a key command to jump to definition and back without any knowledge of the project structure, but it analyzes all the files and keeps track about all the names of variables, methods, functions, classes. And then you have a key command to jump to the definition and back. And so these are some of the features, I guess. The companies who develop some of these editors that are like a commercial product, I guess they get paid quite some money for this rather rare and specialized features, because not a lot of people invest the time to build some of this, because it means you have to have some kind of C++ parser, right? Because you have to sort of like parse the entire source files and figure out what, like, you know, there are templates in there, and there are like all sorts of language constructs in there. There are preprocessor directives like the defines, and the editor has to figure all that out, save it as an index file, and then make it accessible for jumping around. But if you have a feature like that, you can navigate your code base much quicker, of course, right? And that's worth something, because otherwise you would, every time you would need to do a full text search about everything, and that would be horrible, because there are a lot of mentions of the same name all over the place, but only one definition. And sometimes there are copies of the definition with headers that get copied around and stuff like that, and name collisions, and you have to be aware of namespaces, and, you know, like, it gets this totally, you know, it starts as a small feature and it gets totally out of hand rather quickly. And if you feel inspired to make your own editor, yes, I mean, maybe we could like start let's engage with the text editor developer community, right? I'm making mine here too, and you can have yours. I don't know what features you care most about, but yeah. No, I don't know. Like, there are so many interesting options to. For example, what mine is still missing. For example, you could have like an automatic sort of file or data management system. You know, so like, it's not that I have a file open dialog and decide what file I want to create, but I just give it a name and it would automatically store it in a database. And then I would have a list of all the text files I worked on, and I could open them or switch between them. And if I ever need, I could press a button to export it, to maybe to automatically synchronize it with my online, with my website, for example, right? The editor could automatically send it and publish it to the website when I hit the save button, or synchronize it between devices or something like that. You know, that's like rather interesting options there, and I'm not aware of too much editors do these kind of things. And of course, it's not really an editor feature, but like if you would have an editor that does things like this, that's something I would want for myself, right? Because, but I guess like these most of these sticky note and to-do list apps, I guess they do it more. And they have a primitive editor, of course, in there. Basically just a control that allows you to enter keyboard input into a text field. Yeah. So I guess these are the... I guess it's this culture and tradition in its own. Other people bake their own bread, right? I mean, you can always go and get bread from this supermarket, but some people make bread of their own, of course, right? So it's, I guess it's that kind of thing. Let's see. I don't need that one. I think I adjusted these two. Or maybe, like, you know what also would be interesting? To make a video series as a sort of text editor review, and sort of reviewing and describing each of the editors that are listed on that website. And every week or so there would be another review of an editor and looking into the features. And of course, hopefully there are some crappy ones among these, right? Who like that don't work properly and or like are not maintained anymore and have some buggy features or something, or interesting things happening. That would be rather interesting. I would want to watch these, but I think I don't have the time to, like, there's so much things to do. But that would be a cool video series. I would, yeah, that could be fun to make and watch, says Leaf. Yes, I totally agree. Maybe one day. I guess the biggest problem would be to install these, you know, because some of them might be for obscure machines and obscure operating systems or outdated operating systems, and I wouldn't have most of these. But yeah, maybe in a VM. I mean, there are of course all of these channels that review GNU Linux distributions, right? And there are people who review products they ordered from you know, online shops and stuff like that. And for, you know, like technical programming people, text people, that could be an interesting series, of course. And maybe you like discover a really good editor that becomes your favorite of choice for the future, and you just don't know about it yet. That would be quite cool, I guess. Because like the website is fine, there you can read about it, but there's no screenshots, and even with a screenshot it's only like the static, it would only be one static view of the overall layout or interface design. But like showing the special features of each of the editors in video, you could get a pretty good impression of what it is and what it does. Yeah. Okay. Oh. Okay. That's fine. So I guess the point here with the job file is that I'm not allowing the concatenation of more than 2 files, because my assumption would be after the second one was concatenated to the end of the first one, the third one would probably not be compatible with the end of the second one, I guess. I mean, theoretically, yes, but like, I mean, that's probably not a scenario that is a very common one in practice, I guess. And I don't need any of this because that will be automatically decided by the implementation, what the root element is and what the encoding is. I probably need to preserve the encode. That's probably the problem, right? I guess I need to, if I have mixed encodings, if I'm concatenating and the sources are of different encodings, then I have a problem, of course. So I guess I leave this one here for the job file to define, and I throw away the encoding instruction of the 2 input files. And that's only some sort of workaround to make the user aware that there might be a problem here. And a future version of these concatenators, also the generic XML concatenator, that could look into the input file, and if the encodings are different ones, then it could complain and terminate execution, cancel execution, because the result likely would be a mess. But in this case, I guess I'm leaving that one. So at least if the user mixes up different encodings and lies here in this declaration here, then it's at least his fault and not mine, because I gave the option to declare it correctly and made him aware to offer the like a proper encoding information and also make sure that the sources are of the same encoding. So I guess that's more needs to stay in there for psychological reasons, I guess. Okay, and I already started to rename stuff in here, but I'm not too sure if I didn't miss something. Let me search really quick if there's still something left. Yeah, I guess that should be fine. Yes. Okay, and I'm going to comment out all of the imports because I want to reintroduce them one by one, depending on what the code will end up doing. That's something an integrated development environment could automatically take care about, but for my purposes here. Okay, that's the change history concatenator 1. Okay, and like on stream, I never work much on the translation files because that's utterly boring, and not to waste time for anybody who should ever view any of this. Okay, number 1. Number 2. Okay. Now I guess I could try to compile it, and it of course will complain a lot because all of the imports are commented out, but like from I think what I usually do is I comment out all of the implementation and then start to reintroduce the portions that I want to keep. And like all of this is still boilerplate stuff. It's like always the same, like reading the job file, and maybe I'm already going to do some small adjustments here because this doesn't need to be an error, an array. Oh wait, maybe I'll leave it like this and check in the end if it's more than 2, just for convenience purposes. I have 1 and only the root element name goes away. Okay. Is that an attribute of the output file element? Let's remove it. Okay. Input file exists. Okay, all of that gets checked. Needs to be exactly 2 files. Welcome back. It's not that you missed a lot, right? Yeah, but like if you have any sort of like recent interests or topics, I mean, I'm already pretty distracted anyway, so like the point on working on this isn't so much like making a lot of progress and completing it, but like being on stream and discussing the general sort of, you know, like text things, or, you know, hypertext, hypermedia, whatever things. Leaf asks, do you watch Luke Smith or DistroTube? No, I don't even know what they are, but from the name of the latter, I assume that these are channels that review GNU Linux distributions, right? And some time ago, I looked into some of these, and there's of course like, what is the site called? DistroWatch, I guess that's the one, because from time to time sometimes I'm looking for new distros if I want to do something specific or special, and I look into these lists. But like Luke Smith, is that like DistroTube? Is it was what I'm sort of assuming here, or is that something else? Maybe I should start to watch them, right? I mean, currently I'm quite busy with my digital video consumption because I'm watching all of the footage of the BBS documentary by Jason Scott. That's the bulletin board system documentary, and I have, I guess, 55%, 60%, and I'm trying to push through it. Leaf says, yeah, they both made videos on systemd recently. Oh, I know that there's some sort of like conflict debate about, systemd, but I don't know the particular disagreements there. I guess they are sort of like putting too much into systemd, and not a lot of people are too happy about it. How long is the documentary? Like the BBS documentary is 3 or 4 hours, right? But for the full footage, I guess it works like this. Let's see, maybe I can pull it on. Like Jason Scott published the entire footage of it, and most of these are 1 hour recordings, and some of them are 2 times 1 hour or something like that. But like that's pretty interesting in terms of networking. And what I didn't realize, and I just found out that's not very well mentioned and pointed out in the documentary, that the guy who sort of invented the first bulletin board system, Ward Christensen, he was on the ARPANET, and on there they discussed the idea that you could potentially pass data between computers by using the telephone line with the modulator demodulator, like the modem approach, like encoding and decoding acoustic signals into digital signals. And I guess that was discussed on the ARPANET, and what Christensen was on there, and that's where they got the idea from. So basically the ARPANET and the BBS world is quite related to each other in this general pool of people who were interested in networking, and quite a lot of the ARPANET people basically joined, or did some of the joined some of the BBS world as well for their programming and computing and networking stuff. So and of course later all of the people who had like the larger BBS operators, they eventually became ISPs, like the internet service providers, as the ARPANET went to become the internet. So basically like all of these people are sort of related, maybe for different reasons, but this is like a general broad development in history, I guess, that's sort of connected and interrelated. Leaf asks, BBS are like chan sites and forums, right? Yeah, I guess what they had, if you connected the modem with your telephone and that with the computer, then of course you could send text over the wire. So basically they installed programs on their computers that would for example do a login, and then you would have a menu or something, right? And then you would have like messages. For example, like the idea behind a bulletin board system is that you log in, leave a message there, and the other people who log in, they can read the message and leave a message in response to you. So if you come back to the same bulletin board, then you would find the reply. So you could like have some sort of asynchronous messaging. And later with multi-line BBSs that also have multiple telephone lines connected to them. For example, if your computer have like a serial port and whatever bus they also used, then you could have real-time chat over telephone in like at a time where the internet wasn't available at all outside of universities and for research purposes. So like let's see if I can find the footage really quick. And I think the footage is even released under Creative Commons, but I'm not too sure about that. Yeah, so like let's not. So like see, all of these are usually at least 1 hour and sometimes 2 or 3, right? With all sorts of pioneers of like early networking and, you know, programmers, users, right? And I guess the way I do it is I guess I opened the collection, like these are collected into some sort of playlist, I guess. Yeah, I think that's it. And then I order them by date of publication so I can keep track of the ones I have already seen. And of course, I strongly recommend that for anybody who's interested in sort of networking and text things as well. I mean, it's not so much about text. You know, like some of these people, they used it, of course, for file transfer, file sharing, right? Because like at that time, software wasn't really sold as a package in the store. So basically, and also like the pirate scene would pass games around with these kind of systems. Yeah, that's so much time, of course, but like I do it like I'm working on something else, and in parallel, I listen to these. And if I would be smart about it, and if I would have tooling for it, then I would even make some annotations or, you know, select some highlighting clips or something, right? So I could like offer you best moments playlist, but unfortunately I don't have the tools and I didn't prepare in advance. But that's see, and then I order them by date published, and currently, and see, like that's not all of it. It also needs to fetch more. So I guess there are 2 pages more like this. So for some reason it's a little bit slow at the moment, but I guess that's because I'm streaming. Oh my, it's pretty slow. And like Jason Scott edited this into a 3 or 4 hour more narrated documentary, and that's the short version, and that's also highly recommendable. So if you don't watch all of these, like I mean you don't need to watch anything, but in here there's also like the it's also on YouTube, but it's also on here. Oh, even to get the thumbnails of each of these takes some time. And it's fetching more, I guess, but not too much. I guess like, yeah. Okay, I guess that's the. Give it some more time. That's what here. And yeah, I mean, some of these people, you know, they have multiple facets to their history and worked on different things. Like some are rocket engineers on the side or did some other software work, you know, like operated networking or ISP centers, or somebody were engaged in some activism or legal stuff, you know, because of like network regulation and stuff. And like you have this huge pool of pretty interesting stuff, but I guess it gets messed up here to some extent. I think I saw that already. Okay, but like So I can give like a short summary from memory for each of these, what they basically said and what they did. But like I don't remember all of these names, and it's all cool and interesting. So like I'm now here at this one. See, like that's I guess that's 65% or something. Yeah. That's what I watch instead of TV. That's what I listen to instead of radio. Okay. Okay. And I guess this is already the code that starts to write the output, I guess. Right, so I'm going to comment it out. One thing I don't like about like these new languages like Java is that they don't support like a preprocessor that would allow to comment out larger blocks of text. That's really annoying. How could there be so much to it? You mean to the BBS culture? Is that what you mean? Or is the question why there are so much recordings, or why caring so much about all of these different aspects? Oh, wait. Why is there so many long videos about it? Yeah, I guess, I mean, you could, if you are planning to do a documentary, I guess you could travel to the one guy who is like the original inventor, or you could go to the one guy who ran the most successful business, or you could go to the guy who was the most active user, or to the one guy who's like, I don't know, like just pick a few of these and then base the entire documentary on their accounts. But like with history and all of that, like they of course are going to only describe their part of the story. So in order to capture history in a more, like in a more comprehensive way and like more neutral way, I guess you want to capture as many accounts as possible, because like the winner writes the history, and sometimes they get the facts wrong, sometimes they want to portray themselves in a good light, right? And like all the controversies and some things they forget, some things they are confused about. And this BBS thing, that's not like ancient Rome or something. So at least you have the option to interview a wide range. I mean, that's not the only one, only documentary like this. There's also like the text adventure Get Lamp thing, and like later, like in 50 years or something, or even now, it's like invaluable. Like I'm too young to be a contemporary of these people, right? I wasn't part of that scene. I'm in another country anyway. So like there's no way for me to find out what they did there. So for me, I like it quite a lot that there are so many interviews in there, because that gives me like a broader idea what different people did there, because like everybody uses it for different purposes. They are, you know, like it's just a lot of things going on at the same time. So how can you possibly capture you know, like like an archive, national archive or national library? I guess they also like for example, I don't know how it is in, for example, in your country, but with the National Library, there are collection task. How would you call it? Like their task is to collect every single book that's printed in Germany in all times, right? So there's no, like, I mean, if it has more than 4 pages and or like 4 or 16, you know, like they're basically collecting everything, because like the point is, the very crucial point is, for capturing and preserving, archiving history, you never know what will be the very crucial insight in the future. You know, if you didn't capture it in the past, you have no chance to getting at it, right? So that's why you probably want to collect and preserve as much as you can. For example, there are like some people who, Ted Nelson, for example, he collected all kinds of spam and advertising. You know, like he subscribed to every computing newsletter at the time in the 60s, 70s, and he got a lot of advertisement in his post box, and he kept all of these. And you would wonder, yeah, like, I mean, that's a lot of paper trash and junk, right? But now, some years later, that's probably the only source you can learn about computing systems that were advertised in the market at that time, right? Because today, like, the companies, they don't exist anymore. They threw all of their manuals and advertising material and product descriptions in the trash. And like that's where you get, like, Jason Scott has this preservation of service attack, where they at one point saved the manuals from a company that sold manuals to old equipment. And these can be very important if you are running some of these old machines and you cannot get manuals anymore because nobody scanned them and put them in the net, on the net. That's some of the sources where you can get some of these information out of it. Or, for example, describing how they, you know, what sort of equipment they used in what ways, and like, I mean that's not like changing the world, I guess, but it's quite entertaining and offers some perspective, historical perspective, because some of the stuff that, like what we are working today, that's not too different from earlier times, and there are other new things that are quite different from earlier times, and that's like the interesting parts about it, to understand what's actually going on, right? Because, you know, if you only listen to the mainstream narrative of history, you only have this hero journey, you know, of the single inventor that does the thing in solitude and he's a genius, and like you're ignoring what actually happened. Right? Everybody likes to think one day Bill Gates got up and one day Steve Jobs get up, and out of nowhere they did their inventions, and Tim Berners-Lee one day stood up and thought, let's do the web, and you know, like and like Mark Andreessen, they came out of a vacuum, out of an empty universe and created something new. But like all of this has sort of a larger history that's mostly forgotten and hidden, and that's quite important to know, because today it's the same, and a lot of things will get ignored and forgotten, but like, for example, I'm doing here some software development, right? And of course it will be completely forgotten after some even even after the end of the stream, right? So, and there are a lot of similar projects, and they are more successful economically, commercially, or they are more popular, right? And only the winners get remembered, and all the other, like Hypertext community as of today, with all the different initiatives and projects and people in there, like that will be entirely be forgotten except by a few people. And so every new generation thinks they have to start from scratch, right? And they repeat the same mistakes, and they think they are the only and the first ones who do it. And like, I don't subscribe to that idea of history. I don't think that's what's happening. Supported IO, and then the XML classes, input stream, event reader, and I guess I can keep all of, and who knows, I guess I also need the iterator for the list. Okay. I don't. What was I saying here? I guess the point is that it is arbitrary. I guess it can be any data to pass in the processing, in the XML declaration. Okay, whatever. Oh my. That's certainly a to-do, and I guess it should remain a to-do. Not worrying about it too much. So with my example file, I guess I'm going to pick up the format from there. And these files, for semantic reasons, also have their own namespace. And I could check the namespace identifier for the input file and complain if it is a different format, or warn if it is a different format. But that's something for future versions, for future expansions, because like you could still look at it as IANA registered microformats or something like this, or like a living standard that's compatible, like a REST hypermedia controls. That's all of these are like the user should be allowed to ignore if the format version is a different one, because that would allow the program still to do the reasonable thing to some extent, but the user should be able to decide if he want to cancel the execution if the format version is a different one, or to proceed and still do it anyway. That should be up to the user, or ultimately also to the system engine that could make decisions like this. Okay, here's where the namespace comes in. That's basically just an ID. Okay, and I'm probably going to use a line break just here, so it looks a little bit better. But on the other hand, like there's no reason for like to look into the output file, like to look into a file like this with a text editor. It's not necessarily for human readability. So basically the line break could be saved as well, but you know, if it is all in the root, if all of the elements follow the root element on the same line, that's a little bit, you know, not very nice if you use word wrap. See, here you have another feature of your text editor, of your traditional text editors, word wrap. And there are different strategies on how to do them, like I guess the soft word wrap, or like based on, you know, like these are hard word wrap, soft word wrap, I guess. Or for example, you know, like things like this that you can collapse based on the language. You know, all of these editor features, some have them, some not, but when you need one of these, yeah, like I keep switching between word wrap, and that's really annoying, because if I write human readable text, I always enable word wrap, because otherwise, like, I use the enter not after 80 characters or something, but I write everything in one line and use enter to separate paragraphs for, you know, text and semantic reasons. And if I write code, of course, I usually, each command like this has a separator of its own, and that's usually followed by a line break anyway. So then I don't need the word wrap. And also some editors, they allow you to have like a vertical line here to indicate when you run out of 80 characters or whatever. And like this 80 characters or 40, that's like your VT100 terminal size. So that if you have like a standard terminal, VT100 terminal, that has, I guess, 80 characters in width and 40 characters in height, or was it 24, 25? Then you could still read a file based, if you just, what is it, cut or type? I think cut. You know, like it's all of these crazy little things. Text things. I think it's cut, isn't it? Let's see. Cut, job file. Yeah. So like if you don't exceed the 80 characters or 79 on a VT100 terminal, that should be still fine. But if not, you have things like this, you know, like that's ugly, of course, right? So I should have put an enter in here, or like the word wrap should be intelligent to, you know, like, yeah, and the 79 is just because you cannot be sure about the basically you could use the, oh wait, yeah, I think the 79 is so that the line feed can go in the 80th character, right? Yeah. Especially people like today, people have these white displays, and if I wouldn't have like this stream set up here with the cam and the chat, then I would have even more space. Like up here, I could something like this. Yeah, but like the like I guess the 79 is about if you fill up the 80 characters with with ordinary characters, then I think oh wait, then the line feed, if you have a line feed, then if that becomes the 81st character, then it would do an automatic wrap on your last character, and then execute the single line feed at the beginning of the first of the next line, so you have an empty line in between. But you know, like all of this is totally stupid because like the cat program, for example, if it would be aware of the terminal size, it could decide to not output line feeds if they are in the 81st character, right? Yeah, but like, of course, it recommends the 79 characters per line just for that reason, for the VT100 terminal and that very reason. But you know, like it's sort of like stupid because there's not really a reason for any of this. I mean, the cat program could also allow word wrap, right? And decide to break at the last space depending on the terminal size. But like, I guess the cat program doesn't know about the visual terminal size. Yeah, so it's like all of this strange. On all my computers, 80 characters work fine on all terminals I've used. I've used some where this doesn't work, just because for the reason I mentioned. Right? I guess you do understand what I mean. Like if I'm filling up even more characters, and then I have an explicit line feed in the 81st, then I have an empty line for every line, and that's ugly. So like the 79 recommendation is there to just as a good yeah, sure. And you know, like it's totally stupid, isn't it? I mean, there's no real reason for that except that like a console program has no clue about like the terminal size, except you are in doing some things like, I think it was telnet, because there you have like negotiation about what mode the client and the server is in, and then they are negotiating about terminal size and stuff like that. But like, you know, that's the reason why you have all of these different editor features for, you know, crazy reasons. I mean, no ordinary regular computer user runs into any of that. Okay, let's see, what have I done? I guess I've like... So I think at this point I already have a normal generic XML concatenator here, because this is what the old code does already. Maybe only the import iterator is still missing. Yeah, of course, for the attributes. Okay. And now I don't have two files like this. Yesterday I created one, but like I guess I can easily produce input files for it. Let's see, how would I do that? Let's just go with what I have here. HTX change history concatenator, and the job file tries to always set reasonable default values, input 1 and input 2. Okay, let's call this input 1 XML, input 2. Have these opened. So this is input 1. Let's have it on the top and the other one at the bottom. So like, I guess to create a good example, I guess I'm going to delete, let's say, the last 4 instructions from the input 1 file. And for the input 2 file, I'm going to delete everything but the last 4 instructions. And then I'm going to concatenate the two with the idea to then diff it against the original, right? Just needed to copy that before I change the input 2 file, so I still have it. So I don't need to download it another time again. So jump to the top. Okay. And one nice thing I still want to add here for the output is, of course, the obligatory line break at the end is missing, and while I write everything without white space to the output, at least the closing of the root tag, root element, could also be separated by a line break. So it's just like a little bit more readable, or like, I mean, not a total mess when opening in an ordinary editor. So if a user who doesn't have a lot of, like, isn't very familiar with these kind of XML things, at least it looks somewhat more like understandable. It doesn't look like the closing root element is missing or something, right? So it's just another psychological small thing. Okay. Oh, did it? Oh, it did build. Okay. Job file, result, info, XML. And it didn't complain. No, I like, oh my. Okay, like my terminal is like totally messed up now. I guess I have to get it to 80 to 25 characters. And I guess from Telnet, that was one of the differences, that it is not too clear if the VT100, like, I mean, it depends with the, it's way too long. I used any of this. I guess the standard is clear, but practically in the implementation. Okay, like now we have an output file that should be exactly as the original file, because I see in there are like the last 4, but let's just diff it. What would that be? No, let's say original against output. And they are different, yeah, of course, because that's like everything is different, because for, I guess, white space reasons. And I cannot see that in the browser, but if I look into the files in the editor, oh no. Of course, like text nodes should be preserved. Okay, so what's the difference? Ah, I see. Okay. I copy everything, including the root node, and that needs to be filtered out. Is that also true for the, yeah, of course, I have it twice in the output. And I guess all the other lines are off by 1. That's why everything diffs, right? It's off by 1 for the diff. Diff and patch, these are the two magical words here. And like this is a feature of the original XML concatenator, that it preserves the root tags of the two, or like of all of the files that get concatenated. Oh, das was one cold coffee there. Okay, so I guess I have to copy everything except the root element. How do I do it? How could I do it? The problem is that I cannot identify the end of like the closing root element, because I could say if I enter the first is start element, of course, right? I can of course omit it in the output, but the reader will proceed to read the end elements and won't know when the end element is like the end root element is reached. And I cannot rely on a name. I don't want to rely on a name because the root name could be used multiple times. So I guess what I'm going to do is to introduce a stack counter. And the name of stack is just because like you could look at it as a path in XML, like XPath. You could say like every time you enter a new element and you add one as some sort of XPath level going down the hierarchy, and every time you leave I decrement the stack counter. So that's probably what I'm going to do. Stack count. Okay. Why shouldn't it be a long? I don't know. I mean, there's probably no file ever that can exceed the long in terms of count. So if it is a start element, pretty simple. If no, wait, that's like count. So like from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3, and end element is just decrementing the thing back to 0. And now I can easily say if stack count is, I mean, like this, I guess. If I'm in the on the first level still, continue, and that would check the reader if it has another element and get the next element, and then I continue, right? So, and that's the same here. I need to omit it from the output. That would be a really easy way to skip the root element from getting written to output, I guess. And hopefully that does the job, because if not, then I'm in trouble. Oh no, that was the diff command. So I'm still wondering about the is characters, right? Because, you know, why write them to output regardless of the stack count or level count? Yeah, but now let's have a look to the output. If there's still a bug or something like that, if there's still a problem with it, then I can still look into it later and come up with a more elaborate solution to it. Yeah, see, so like, I mean, I still preserve the line break that's around the root element, but that's not something XML should care about, right? So like if the original wouldn't have line breaks in the input, then I would end up without them. But I guess I'm skipping all of the... Oh, there are lots of closing elements missing. What did I write wrong? Stack count is smaller or equal than... Why is that? I guess because I'm... Ah, that's terrible. I guess I have some local sub loops in here that also... Yeah, oh no, wait. Oh, why is that? I mean, maybe... Start out with 0. Start out with 0. First time I enter here, it gets to 1. I do a continue. And then I'm already at 2. And I come in with 2. I reduce it to 1. So like... Is this the only? Oh my. I guess there's a really simple reason for it, but I'm too a little bit too lazy to think hard about it. Just want to get to the solution. I guess that's some sort of yo-yo. Yeah, I guess that's of course problematic. I see. Oh. Event as end element, get name, get local part. What's wrong with it? Ah, I'm missing a plus. Simple syntax thing. Okay, so that's... But why are there 2 of these? That's off. Okay, see, like that's from the second file, of course, and that's sort of like fine. So like every time I enter an instruction, so I get from 0 to 1, which is the root element, and I continue that, and the second time I enter into that instruction, it gets to 2. So if I reach an end element, I guess, as working with stacks, I guess the point is that I have to analyze the number as it is when entering. Like, I mean, stacks are these, you know, like especially in this sort of XML tree-like hierarchy stack. Like, see, I'm incrementing the stack count first, and then I do the check. So if I'm leaving, I need to do that in reverse, right? That's like the malloc and free, the new and delete. Whatever I reserved at first, I have to free or delete at last. I guess that's what's going on. So I think that should do it. These are simple principles, but you know, you can easily mess them up or forget about them, as I did, especially in the first attempt. That's easy to confuse. And let's see, let's close all the old stuff, reload, and now the output should be perfectly fine, right? I guess that's... Oh, I still have 2 of these. That's too bad. Oh, come on. And that's even the... Oh, I have to... see. I have to reset. I guess I have to reset the whole counter. Is that the problem? Yeah, no, yes. Yeah, because the stack count is outside of the loop of the input files. So I think I'm going to instantiate it in a new for every input file, like this, I guess, right? Will this do? I mean, of course, it's like... I mean, it shouldn't like, but I don't get back to 0. That's probably the issue here, right? I mean, it shouldn't matter for the stack counter, but the problem is, I guess I'm not getting back to 0 because if I'm at the last root end element, there's nothing that would reset it to 0. Let's have a look if that worked out. Yeah, that looks quite great. And we like from the text nodes that were preserved from the input, we see this is the place where the original root tag is missing and the end tag there as well. So I guess so if I remove these, I should be able to pretty much diff the 2. But maybe like, see, like there's also the, because I work with the stacks XML interface, I don't recognize self-closing XML tags, and I guess all of these will diff from when comparing the output of the concatenator with the original input. Oh my. Oh, and I also have like that's a duplicate, isn't it? Didn't I save the input file, the changes to the input file? That's probably what I forgot. Yeah, I didn't save the deletion of the. I wanted to delete the last 4, so like this. This should be the input 1 file, and the input 2 file should have exactly those 4 last instructions in here. Okay. Let's remove the output just to be very sure. No changes, of course. Let's have it run. Let's diff. And there should only be the delete instructions. There's still a difference in. Let's see if that's due to line breaks or XML escaping, because there could be special character escaping. That could be the other reason for a diff. And then I need to add a loop to outputting individual characters. That's something I don't like, but okay, let's diff again. That should only be delete instructions, and that's probably because of the character escaping, of course, right? Oh my, why is that? Yeah, I guess like the. Is that something I do when writing the output? I guess that's why it happens. I'm escaping more special characters than I need to. And I think that's, oh no, that's in an attribute, of course, right? These are details I don't want to bother too much. I mean, that's basically going to corrupt the files, of course, right? But like, I mean, those are small details that can easily be addressed. Why does the original already? Okay, it's double escaping, of course, right? Because I have XHTML inside XML. And for 2 stages of de-escaping, I get back to the original, like to the actual characters. But now, oh, but it is in fact in an attribute, I guess, right? That's why. So I can just leave it like this, right? Because like this is, no, but wait, it's not in an actual attribute. It's not in an actual attribute. It's escaped already. It could be that this is what the write as encoded Unicode. It could be that this is what happens automatically for all special XML characters, which are the 5 usual ones. And the question is if that's going to corrupt my output file, or because like I still have 2 levels of escaping here, and it should be equivalent. It's not the same, but it is equivalent, and it's not corrupting the output, I guess. Is it? That's the wrong file anyway. Like if I'm going to Leaf asks, what GUI libraries do you use? I guess it's a Swing and occasionally some AWT, just because these are in the Java standard. So I don't use any extra things here for this project. But other than that, I also played a little bit with Qt under C++, right? So that's some of the I looked a little bit into JavaFX, but unfortunately they recently announced that they are not going to continue it. I feel very bad about it. In my mind, there should be more GUI libraries. Yeah. Okay, but like these quotation marks and this greater than bracket, I guess that's just because of the call of the write. Like, I guess the write as encoded Unicode is just escaping every special character regardless where it is encountered. And that's sort of fine, because when I de-escape it 2 times, then I get back at the very same result. So I can just leave it like this as of now. That's sort of okay, I guess. What libraries do you use? I think you told me a little bit that you also do some programming, but I'm not aware if you do some graphical user interface development as well. I mean, to some extent everybody has to some extent, right? But like, question is if it's like just some dialogues or like if it's something more complicated or large. Or even experimental interfaces, you know, I would also like to. I mean, there's quite some, like, some demand. I mean, like, for these text features and stuff like that, I'm probably going to need to write my own sort of user interface rendering library, right, from scratch, basically, which isn't fun, but the current libraries don't offer a lot of helpful controls some of the time. So there's some need for innovation. Okay, so I guess this is already concatenating the 2 files. I think we can do a small experiment here. The change instructions executor. So you only use one library? You mean like for this project? Yes, basically. Like I try to avoid all dependencies as much as possible. And I try to have it all homogeneous in one, like all in Java. But like the point is to develop it as a abstract standard, so it could, like, these parts should be interchangeable. So I can also plug in, like, if there's an hypertext engine or system in the end, I could also plug in order or like register order implementations, for example, C++ and Qt, or in general. Leaf, have you ever used Allegro, SDL, SFML, Qt, or anything similar? Yes, I learned some Qt with C++ recently, just for this text editor, basically. Also JavaFX. Allegro I looked into a long time ago for game programming, but that's like a long time ago. I think it's also more for, you know, I don't know if it's like, it probably has something for window, like for window controls interfaces, right? But I think it's more for graphics programming. SDL, no, I didn't. SFML, I didn't. OpenGL, a long time ago. And what else? You know, like I like just didn't invest too much into, a little bit for graphical rendering and not, yeah. And of course, you know, at work we have other libraries, but these are proprietary. So I guess I consider them to be irrelevant. I can't use them for my own personal projects. Yeah, you can create multiple windows in Allegro 5, I'm pretty sure, says Leaf. And yes, and that's something I need to work on soon, because, you know, like with the YouTube comments, I went a little bit into web annotation, and I also have like trying to annotate the info central draft document. So like just as another sort of experiment. And like the point is, with web annotations, you always have a main text, and then you have the annotations and comments on the side or as an overlay as secondary text portions, right? So like you have the one authoritative source and the secondary annotations or extensions. And in hypertext, I think each of these are equal primary text sources. So basically I need a sort of new interface that's more like, I guess you know about these, today we don't have it anymore, but like in earlier traditions, interface traditions, you had, what it is, I think it's called tiled windowing, where your desktop basically, or your screen is just a grid, and then you have different cells where the individual windows snap into, or applications snap into. And that's basically what I will soon need to work on. Like similar with the glossary, I think I don't have it open anymore. You know, like each of these text portions should be equal first, how is it called? First citizen? Like, I mean, there's no such thing as the authoritative source, because like every annotation could be made into a full-blown text standalone of its own, basically. And of course, I do recognize there's the reason for, yeah, tiling window managers, exactly, yeah, something like that. And I'm probably going to look into something like that soon, or, you know, as a rendering interface for hypertext system or hypermedia system. And why not revisit Allegro? I mean, that's not what I'm doing tomorrow, but you know, in 1 or 2 months or something, in a few weeks, who knows? I guess I will need something like that soon. I don't care what particular library it is, and I could also imagine mixing several of these, right? That would be fine with me. It's just, yeah, I mean, I like, I use a tiling window manager on my computer, yeah. And I guess it's not very common, but for some things it's like, or like, I mean, I guess you are on one of these, I guess you are on a GNU Linux box that has like all of these console terminal windows all over the place, right? And you have your key commands to switch between those. Is that what you are doing? Because there are, I guess more more people started to use these again, I guess, right? Are your tiles all console windows? Well, no terminals. Okay. Then I guess it's a little bit special, right? Because, you know, if you look on Twitch or on stream, there are a lot of people who have like their screen separated in all of these different terminals, and then with short key commands they switch between those. And yeah, okay. If you are using GUI applications with a tiled window manager, that's, and see, like I'm trying to arrange my stuff here as well in some sort of tiles, right? I have like the chat window, there's some space for the webcam window, and like I have some trouble with organizing my windows here. Yeah, so I guess like all of this I have to look into that some more soon. And like the idea is that if I have an interface like this, which is a little bit along tiled window managing, I think the idea is that maybe you could say on one of the tiles, I always want to have my, I don't know, navigation list, and on the right I have my whatever browsing history window or something, right? So that different types of applications would snap into that kind of grid. So you have your so it's more like the idea is that it is like the cockpit interface of a fighter jet, right? You are basically working with text, but you have your, you know, your mini map, and you have your history, navigation history, so you can jump back and stuff like that. And that's something that needs to be worked on, I guess, to some extent. But I don't have solutions. I didn't start with looking into it too much. But maybe I can then ask you some questions, or maybe like, I mean, because like what I'm then most interested in is like finding out about your experience in terms of how you are using it, because like what advantages and disadvantages it has in your use, because you know everybody's different, and what you optimized for your own needs is something entirely different on my side, on the side of other users. So that's like just because it works for me or for you, that doesn't mean that it is the same for everybody, right? So that's why it could be quite interesting to learn about habits and customs and stuff like that. What did I want to do? What I use tiling window manager system for? Yeah, like, I mean, maybe, I mean, we don't need to do that now, but maybe eventually, if you don't mind, like, I don't know. I see. I cannot even come up with the proper question. But like, for example, if you have a screenshot for like how you arrange, or what type of, like, I can tell you. Yeah, is it that you have certain applications in certain tiles, or do you is it just about random space to put some any random application into, or do you have sort of standardized positions or tiles for certain applications? Like, for example, the browser window is always in one tile, and the other tile is reserved for whatever. Is it like this, or do you just rearrange applications randomly into these tiles? So I have workspaces instead of minimizing windows. Ah, okay. Yeah, I mean, like, I have like this multiple desktop thing, of course, too. I mean, that's a pretty standard thing, but I guess you are not speaking about these, right? Are you? I don't have any standard positions. You can set them up, but I never bothered. Okay. Because, you know, see, like, even with that, that's some sort of like important difference already there, because other people probably have some snap-in or standardized positions. Ah, I'm speaking about these desktops. Okay. Yeah, I mean, there are even more crazier versions like this, I guess. Or if not, I have to develop them. Right? Yeah. So, virtual desktops. Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, that's... Yeah, see, I have them too, but I don't use them too much if I'm sort of like all over the place with the same task of streaming. But for example, see, like this restream chat window, every time I have to reposition it, that it isn't too large or too small. Every time I open the browser, I have to redo that. And if I would have like a snap-in grid tile layout, I could say the browser application is supposed to go into this space and fill the entire space that's available to you, and it would automatically do the right thing along a predefined tile layout, for example. I can go through them with keyboard shortcuts or mouse. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess that's the standard thing. I guess on GNU Linux systems, we have that for decades, I guess, and enjoy that. And on other operating systems, I don't know. I think Windows doesn't have it out of the box to this day. You could set it up, yes. I guess that's in response to my browser tiling layout. Leaf says the way it works is you have to set it up and then you can save the layout and load it when you want to, I think. Yes, and like with my sort of hypertext and hypermedia system, the idea would be that for different users there could be I could package and distribute predefined layouts for different users or user classes. So for example, if you have somebody who's writing on a wiki or federated wiki or does some sort of content editing, he probably could need a different layout than an author who writes a book or somebody who does collaborative writing, right? Because then you could have like a small window that shows you who else is currently working on the same document with you, but you don't need that if you are a writer who works in solitude, and all sorts of interesting little things like this. And that could be pretty much fine-tuned for different users. And also people could share their own layouts, and there could be a collection of, window tile layouts. So that would be sort of cool. And like all of these tools which are GUI related, they could be sort of intelligent and be and snap in automatically for your sort of workspace or work environment. Yeah, but these are just some vague ideas, I guess. And I'm probably, and a lot of other people came up with these already, so that's not new, I guess, but maybe I should also research what is already available and could be used. But the problem is, if it is some external library or program, of course, under GNU Linux, it's just a sudo apt-get install, right? And you have it and it works. That's fine, but most of the world cannot use it. All of the people who are on poor and bad operating systems and packages. So I guess that's why I would need to put that into Java or distribute Allegro with it, because like on Windows systems, Windows, you don't have Allegro shared library already there out of the box, I guess, right? And it's like all of this crappy mess. Do you use any virtual machines? You could test some window managers. Yeah, I don't use a lot of virtual machines, but that's also for the text editor review series. something to do, to have a lot of virtual machines and start these different editors. Yeah, so I don't use a lot of virtual machines because most of the time I'm not doing something that, I mean, most of the stuff, like my own stuff, runs natively on GNU Linux distros. It's in Java anyway. Native applications, I can usually install them from software repositories. And it would be like mostly at work if you need to have a VM to start a system that's not on your work machine and you cannot easily install different operating systems because of IT department restrictions. And here, if I would run something from work here at home, that's also something I shouldn't do or don't need or don't want to do, right? So that's why I'm pretty much not using VMs that much, but I mean, on the other hand, I'm not against it, you know. That's like, I mean, I guess, but I have so many computers, usually I can always grab one of these and install a system on them, like natively on it, and use it for some time. So that's why I'm not big in using VMs, but I'm not against it. So like maybe for experimenting with some interface things, maybe I should look into that some more, or need to eventually. So let's see these two. But I guess like a lot, like, or for example, for testing or something, usually people have a lot of different virtual machines to preserve the state of the testing environment, right? And not have it polluted by other applications that get installed on their native real environment. Or, you know, like all of these server containers, I mean, it's not the same like a VM. Emulators, okay, that's also not the same as a VM, but like, I mean, today it's like a lot of people use many of these, I guess, right? So let's generate. So now I'm just leave. Can you recommend any screen recording software for GNU Linux? I'm using Record My Desktop, and that's a pretty simple and nice thing, and that is available as a terminal program and also as a small GUI widget. Then you have like a menu down here. Let's see if I can. I don't want to start it because I'm a little bit you know, suspicious. Hopefully it doesn't crash my stream, but that's Record My Desktop. You see, I can also type Record My Desktop, just hit enter, and then it will record, capture everything on the desktop. And with Control C, I can cancel the recording, and then it then needs some time for encoding. So that's the terminal version of it. So that's the Record My Desktop for the terminal console, I guess. And this is the graphical version of it. And then you get a small. If I press record, then down here where in the tray icon or what it is in the clock, I then get a menu for stopping the recording. And the important thing here is, in the options in advanced, I guess you have to turn off the, there's one option that always gets into the way. It's the outline capture area on screen. If you turn that on, you get a gray area over your recording because for highlighting the capture area. But just turn that off, and then that's usually fine. And that's of course also with sound. The result is a nice OGG file, Vorbis OGG, right? And other than that, yeah, I think that's it. Also then takes some time for encoding the result, and I guess it ends up in like your home directory or something. And that's pretty simple. I of course like have the OBS here, right? Let's see. Can I put that on screen? Yeah, of course. So I also have the OBS here that does the same. You just have the start recording here. That would output you Flash or M4V. I mean, you have a lot of more options in OBS, of course, right? FFmpeg seems to be the smoothest for video, but audio capture doesn't work for me. Yeah, of course, that's another option. I don't know if they are lossy. Can record my desktop record losslessly? I don't know. That's usually not what I care too much with my screencasts, you know, because they're not, you know, if you do gaming or something, then of course it's like another story, I guess. With these tools, FFmpeg, OBS, record my desktop. But for my recordings, you know, it doesn't matter too much. Yeah, so it depends what you want to do. Like, but that's what I used for the last few years. Before that, I used other things, but I mean, yeah. Oh wait, I wanted to generate. Yeah, but like, I mean, for questions like these, always ask. I don't know all of this stuff either. So I learn about system exit 1 instead of system exit -1. So that's like also really good to not only develop my tools here on stream, but also learn a few things or discuss some things. Yeah, I'm all for it. But like, if you are asking for recording, is it about like gaming? I mean, or I mean, I think you even had something about animation on your channel or something, if I remember correctly. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, okay. Mhm. Leaf says I privated most of my videos. Yes, I think, I mean, I don't know how much you privated, but I guess, I mean, last time I checked, there were more on there, but I think it was like some, like, I don't remember what it was exactly, but I think it wasn't so much screencasts, was it? It was more like animations or gaming, or it's for gaming and programming tutorials, maybe. Yeah. Yeah, but like, I mean, you know, like if you have a 4K capture of your programming, that's pretty fine. But like, I mean, you know, I mean, you can upload it to the sites, of course, right? But I mean, I guess it's more important to have like high resolution and good quality for the gaming animations with 30 frames per second and something. I only want up to 7020p. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it should look it shouldn't look too bad in terms of like if it is crisp and readable and it doesn't lag too much. You know, there are some really bad effects that can happen with recording. But yeah, I mean, like gaming and recording, gaming and programming, they are like really different from each other in terms of what you like, what you can still get away with, you know, like if you have like a poor quality lossy game recording, like nobody will watch it at all. But for programming, if it's more about like the content or method, and like as long as the text is readable and not like if the quality is sort of decent enough, I guess one can get away with it. Yeah, but I mean, it doesn't matter. It's always good to have like better quality. On the other hand, then not all. If you're only going for YouTube, okay, there's not really a limit on file upload. But for example, in my case, if I'm uploading to all of these small video sites, they tend to have limits on size, right? So I'm quite happy if it's a little bit lossy at places where it doesn't need to be best quality. But of course, I mean, you can always keep your source file in the highest quality possible, and then render encode it differently anyway. So that's also a good approach, I guess. Okay. And what else? What else? Oops, that was the wrong. But like, I'm not an expert on all of these video things. I'm just like, you know, figuring some of it out as I go, not too worried about you know. Okay, so these two files are the same. So basically they are equivalent after concatenating them, and that's already half or more of the work basically. So it's not really work for the concatenator. But what I could do now, and that's the other option, the change instructions executor that incorporates some checks, of course, for all of the instructions, and maybe I want to put that into the concatenator as well, so that it doesn't, so that it makes sure that I don't encounter an instruction in the input that tries to write out of bounds. You know, if I concatenate two text history files and the one is trying to write beyond the text that's currently available at this point, that's obviously then it's obviously from not meant to, oops, that's probably not directly fitting at the end of the, oh, hi there. Hi, Xenon Magnus is here too. You know, earlier in the stream, like I showed like Leaf is somebody who's currently watching on YouTube, and the problem is that the YouTube chat is not here in the restream. But we discussed a little bit about the BBS documentary, because I'm still watching all of the footage of the BBS documentary, and I'm at 60% or something. And there are some quite interesting things in there, so yeah. But I guess I think you know about this, right? Don't you? Oh, I even have a shortcut. Fortunately, the browser has already all the thumbnails. Yeah, have you seen these? Or I mean not watch these necessarily, but you are at least aware, I guess, right? That these are available, aren't you? Well, okay, I like the as this here is on the stream video feed anyway, I guess he can pretty much read that. And I'm reading his messages out in voice, so as a manual way to sync you two guys up. I mean I could let's see. I mean I could open another chat window here from the YouTube one, just to have it both in the video feed, but that sort of defies the purpose of the restream chat. It's too bad that it doesn't work. I don't know what's wrong there. So I'm currently that's Redman. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fine if I want, like, it wasn't on sale anymore as I looked on the website, and then I'm in Germany anyway, so it would be a little bit too difficult for me to do payment. Leaf asks, do you think you could make an IRC server for chat? Yeah, what I usually do, I'm just joining the Freenode server with a room there, and maybe even with a web client, if I'm not opening some sort of, Pigeon or something. Do you guys know that the Pigeon guy is also streaming on Twitch? You know Pigeon? And of course you can hook that up with the IRC, I guess. If not a dedicated IRC application. Yeah. I guess I cannot. Oh, let's see. I mean, we could do it like this. Let's see. Twitch TV on my channel. Yeah, Pigeon the program, yeah. And I guess that's like the, like they have the bad thing is that Twitch deleted the old recordings, and I don't know if they have a backup, but like in there you can listen a little bit about like Pigeon the program. I didn't use it much. There are probably people who don't like it, but like they have like this libpurple library under the client interface, and that's like a universal thing that can talk to almost anything, any protocol. And that's something that can be hooked up with IRC as well. And like, I mean, I'm only mentioning this because it's another interesting developer stream. Hex. Leaf says, I use Hex chat for IRC. Yeah, way back I used my IRC or Milk on Windows. That's like ages old in Windows 98 before I left that world, but the sort of like there are also people who don't like it because it's not proper IRC. But let's find it really quick. Where is it? I don't remember his name. And so maybe I could look into Hex chat, and I don't know if like maybe Freenode is fine for you guys, and that would be pretty easy to just pick a name or room basically. I don't know if we should really go and have a server. I mean, a lot of people use Discord these days, I guess. I don't know if you I guess that's not something for that's not an option, I guess, for our small group here. Man, where is it? I can't find. This one. RW_Grim. So that's somebody I want to recommend, because like he started streaming the Pigeon. Gary Kramlich, yeah, he started to stream his development of this whole messaging infrastructure and things, because like the project has difficulty to attract new developers. Back in the day, as all of this chatting and messaging was new and quite exciting, a lot of people developed some parts and aspects of it. But nowadays, with everybody on Facebook and Google, it's sort of not too many people engage with it. So he started to have this regular streams, as you see. And that's quite nice. I mean, I'm not watching that too closely, but I guess you get the idea for. I just want to recommend watching this, especially as it is Libre licensed software. And the bad thing is that the old videos got deleted from the original start. And there, in the first meeting, they also had like some of the original earlier developers on there, and they like described what they did back in the day and their perspectives and stuff like that. But I don't know if there's a backup of this, but that's the bad online video problem there with Twitch deleting stuff. But if you want, you can like look into one of his. They're always sort of interesting. They have their own deployment infrastructure, I guess, or what is it? No, what was it? I think they do some of their own tooling, and there's interesting stuff in there. Just because it's one, like there you can look into like Libre licensed software development in a large project, right? Because like most of the stuff is small tools, but this is footage of a larger project with many people involved and a large code base and historical stuff. So that gives you some real world perspective in actual software development, not little small example projects or small stuff like mine. Right, and then it becomes a whole different thing with like a full issue tracker with a lot of pull requests and organizing and coordinating people. Okay, so Xeno, you are saying hosted, like we hosting our own. Is that basically what you are suggesting here? Or maybe like how difficult could it be to write an IRC protocol implementation on a weekend, right? I mean, in during my apprenticeship, I think there was one guy who was into IRC a lot, and I think together with him we developed chat protocol implementation, and I think it was IRC inspired. I think it was not actual IRC. No, I'm hosting your Twitch stream on my channel. Oh, okay. Why are you doing that? It's not interesting, is it? I mean, like today, I'm not very productive, not doing interesting things. It's more of like a talk discussion thing here. I mean, I should, in fact, really okay. Maybe I should do development on my second screen here, I guess, right? And instead go to the please don't write anything that's, I guess, right, unlawful or I think in here you can do pop out chat. That's probably what I want to do. That defies the whole purpose of the restream, but anyway. So here we have that one. So I guess you are both now on here. You can also like, let's see. So I'm sort of like capturing the old discussion. But like on YouTube, if you watch the recording, you have like the chat at the side in the recording. And the bad thing then is that then there's, for that synchronization, at that point the restream Twitch chat is missing. So whatever you do, it's always crap. So that's why we probably need a IRC alternative, and that should also be like closed captioning formats or web annotation for video format. So basically I could hopefully capture that off and put it at the, like in a closed capturing annotation format along with the video, for then to have a player to synchronize that back on playback in a video player, I guess. But whatever, like I guess you are the two standard visitors or viewers on my stream. I guess there are not many more people other than that ever. Yeah. But I'm like doing boring stuff anyway. So like I wonder if I should still have, maybe you can leave me with some programming down here, maybe. Could work, right? So there's where we get back to tiled window managers. I could get rid of the webcam, but that's not adding anything. Or maybe it's smarter to, let's see. Apologies, guys, I'm moving you around. Oh. I guess I lost OBS. Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. I should have prepared. How can I get OBS back? It's not even in the task list anymore, is it? I can only quit. Sorry. I'm like... For some reason the OBS disappeared completely. Okay, so I guess you can get the small space down here, and I can get some space for programming up here, and that's potentially some sort of compromise, isn't it? And none of this would be necessary with, you know, some proper streaming setup, but yeah, sure. I mean, there are some very popular ones like the Streamlabs and whatnot, you know. Yeah, but like I guess these are proprietary, and maybe, who knows, maybe OBS has something. Yeah, I guess OBS plugins for these. Like, I mean, some of the stream sites support some of it, but yeah. Usually I'm a little bit too lazy to figure all of that out. Just for some occasional streaming, I mean, I'm fine if it sort of works. Okay, but who knows if I can do something okay, I guess that's a compromise for now. Okay. So, like, I was wondering if I could add some features from the change instructions executor in the change history concatenator, because this does some sanity checks. And they're always pretty useful in situations like this. And now with the result as it is already as of now, like I'm generating, like I'm concatenating the two input files to this combined one here. And like if you remember the input files, like these 4 instructions at the end, they were from the second input file, and all the change instructions before, they are from the first input file. And the idea is, if I would hash all of these, for example, then I could, the change instructions that are based on it, the editor could put in like a new attribute, for example, based on, for example, and then I have some sort of hash to, for example, like indicating what hash I'm using, for example, and then like dot. I don't know if you know dot, and like there are all these info central, and then I could have like something like E96, wait, like something like C5F, something like this. And like, and then if I'm concatenating like some sort of, I could check if I'm concatenating the second file at the end of the first, I could calculate the hash of the previous history of the text, check it against the hash indicated on the second file, and then figure out if these are compatible, if they're actually down to the single byte and bit, if they are compatible, if that's actually an addition to the earlier text history, or if that's incompatible based on the exact bits. I mean, it could still be compatible. For example, if there's a difference in here, then that's a different use mode to do text merge without worrying too much about the identical history of these text history streams. But that's some sort of doing blockchain-y text history versioning, I guess. And that's an option. And it could also be that each of these, like that's a cheap version of it, that each of these instructions has, for example, a number, and the next one has 584, and then the next one in the second file would need to start from 585 in order to be compatible. So these are different ways to check for the integrity and like if these changes are subsequent ones or in merge conflict. Do you use bytes or Unicode code points for positions in these XML files? That's an interesting and important question, right? Because at the moment, like I'm not really decided on it yet, because as these are text applications, I tend to use character count. But technically, I would prefer byte count, right? Because, and like that's really tricky, because, for example, if we use Unicode code points, the problem could be that I have some add or delete instructions that only refer to the diacritical, you know, like the extension characters for, you know, in Hebrew and stuff like that, where you have like, and that could corrupt the characters, of course, which would count as individual characters, but are different Unicode code points for these diacritical extensions, right? And the problem is that That's a really tricky question. I haven't decided on it yet, because other hypertext systems, for example, I worked with Ted Nelson's EDLs, edit decision lists, and in there, that like if I guess I have to support both eventually, and all encodings too. That's a really I have. And also, like, as you see, I mean, I'm using XML because that's mostly a text-based and text-oriented format convention, right? But if I'm working with like eventually, especially with InfoCentral and EDL-based formats, and like proper files or data storage infrastructure behind of this, if which I eventually need for a proper decent hypertext system, then I'm probably going away from character and text-based formats and going to work on byte streams and referencing bytes. So that's a problem I have quite still some difficulty, not decided yet, have to look into it. That's a huge thing in its own. So at the moment it's character count. And like the problem with with my attempt to do hypertext work here is there's basically nobody who would discuss any of these questions with me, right? All of the old guys, they are old and tired and don't have time anymore, and that's understandable, totally understandable. And all of the new hypertext people, they have their own products and projects, and they are sort of competing, So that's very unfortunate. They think they can do it as a business. They think there's money in it, and so they have their huge monolithic applications, and they have their own sort of. They are not very interoperable. They are not small things. So there's almost like it's like you and who like there are not a lot of people who would understand the technical implications and the sort of like. That's really, and those who are, they mostly look into AI, right? If you are doing something about formats and formats for text and information, almost everybody jumps to AI immediately. That's what they care about. So that's like really difficult, but okay. So let's see, the instructions executor, that's the one that has some checks in there already. For example, if you have a Unicode code point and I would reference a byte, then that could break up the character, of course, right? So that's sort of the problem. Okay. So I guess that's the place to look at that's the instruction count. I think I don't need the instruction count, but oh wait, I think I don't need to reconstruct all of the text in memory. it should be enough if I just calculate like virtual positions, or like just calculate the positions, I guess. Maybe the prefix part gets into the way here. That's wrong. I know that's wrong. That's not something. The prefix needs to be resolved to the full namespace. So I guess I should get rid of it. That's I mean, that namespace aware XML, that would probably need some more work on my part to make that work correctly. I'm not doing that right now. So let's see. Do I need, maybe I should just, maybe I could leave it, but just not do the prefix part. Is this? Okay, this is for, I guess I can leave this one because that's sort of copying namespaces, namespace identifiers. That's sort of fine. There's no reason why not to preserve it. It's just an issue with the names of the elements. Okay, so the executor, I guess, was it the executor or the optimizer? No, I think the executor is simpler. So position and length. Okay, that's sort of for the sanity check, I guess, of the attribute. Okay, I see. Should I also check for ignore case? I don't know. In XHTML, I tend to do that because that's both is allowed. Here I could do it too, why not? But on the other hand, so this is not, so like if there's a new format that supports new instruction types, for example move, right, then I mean, one option would be to continue and just ignore these, but I guess I want to cancel and abort the execution, because if I'm not going to calculate positions correctly based on these types that are not supported yet, then that's something that could corrupt the result and output. Therefore, I want to abort here, right? And I'm filling that in off stream, because why would I need to waste the time for that on the recording? Okay. So then I check attributes as well. That's pretty cool. Element add attribute position. Where's the attribute length? Attribute position. Ah, no, there is no attribute length. That's only for deletions. Oh my. Of course not, because like the length is implicit by the amount of characters that follow, which is bad because then I cannot easily. I guess I'm about to decide to not do all of the checking just now, because that would lead to then I need to put in much more things into the concatenator, which I don't really need for now for the text editor to complete it. And there need to be a lot of checks also for this sort of hashy blockchainy thing, maybe for verifying the that the merge can be done without conflict, because it's consecutive history that adds without conflict at the end of the existing history. And like all of these additional things, I guess that's something that should go into the change history concatenator eventually. But as it does concatenate these two files as of now, that's already good enough for my editor here, so that I end up with the result of the earlier history of a text that already existed, and the new input from the current session, and that concatenated result, that's something I can use to generate the final output files. One, to save the final result, concatenated result, but also to generate the renderings, the visualizations of the change history. So I guess that's good enough for the concatenator as it is. So off stream, I need to do the language translation files, and I guess I can then release it, and then it will end up in the final package for the editor. So I can move a little bit more quickly because I don't have to deal with the but maybe I should add a to do. Yeah, that's maybe. I guess I won't remember what I meant by that, but that's I can look it up back in the stream again. Maybe I should make myself a GitLab issue as a reminder, and I guess I can leave it like that and continue with finally completing the whole editor package to get that out quickly and then improve later over time, right? So I guess that's it for this stream. Was very primitive, basically just renaming and rearranging a few things. That's rather boring, but with some people here in the chat and some topics to discuss, that was a little bit quite interesting. So I guess I'm going to end the stream right now, and who knows if I come on again today. Yeah, but there's also something to, like the glossary, maybe that's probably going to be more of a introduction or description video I record. Yeah, but like, this component does concatenate the two version history files, and that's already enough, even if it doesn't do a lot of integrity checks. So I'll leave it like this and expand, improve later, just to get the editor out quickly. Okay, leave and Xeno, bye until next time. Thanks so much for being on stream. And yeah, if you have something, my websites, there are always these, like if you go on here, there's always a contact form, so you can leave me messages there, even if YouTube or Twitch or whatever doesn't work anymore. That ends up in my inbox. Yeah. Okay, have a nice day, evening, morning, whatever it is for you. Until next time. And now I cannot end the stream because OBS went to some other window and I cannot find it anymore, and I cannot quit it except for killing it, I guess, and not properly end the stream, right? Can I? I'm sort of, here, somehow it appeared again. Maybe I just missed it the first time. Okay, goodbye.